very special episode of my podcast. My name is Cheryl, and this is Cappuccino Crafts, my little channel on YouTube and my corner of the general interwebs. And I like to talk about books and crafts, especially knitting and crochet, and TV and movies and other life and chatty things that I want to share with you. And today I am celebrating my 2-year channel anniversary just a few days early. I actually took a moment to look up the date of my very first video that I put up here, and it was my intro video, and that was on May 29th, 2019. But I still wanted to celebrate during May, and so this was really close to that date. So here we are. I have a margarita. Yes, I made myself a margarita. And I have some tortilla chips. I will not be torturing you by crunching these while I'm recording, but I've already had a couple and I will be munching on them while I edit. So I hope you have yourself a delicious beverage of whatever kind, and that you are ready to enjoy this special list. Just a few things before I start telling you the books is that they are in no particular order. I did not rank them 1 to 10. There are 10, but I did not rank them in an order. It's just the order that I wrote them down in. And also, I did allow myself to include a series under one entry if I wanted to, and if I had completed all of the books in that series. Also, I am not including any books on this list that I have read for the first time in the last 2 years, because I feel for a book to be like a standout of all time favorite in my heart and my mind, it needs to stick with me and really stand up over at least several years to be able to count on an all-time favorite list. So, without further ado, let us begin with The Lord of the Rings by J.R.R. Tolkien. This is a classic epic fantasy. It has influenced so many other fantasy writers in the decades after. It was written by Tolkien as one book. That's how he wrote it, and that's how he considered it in his mind. But when the publishers saw how huge it was, they decided it made sense to publish it in 3 volumes. And so it is published in 3 volumes, although I think you can get an omnibus edition in one giant tome. I think I have seen that. But this is just such a beautiful classic. And yeah, I don't think anything more needs to be said about that. And next on the list is The Last Unicorn by Peter S. Beagle. This is another fantasy fairy tale. It is a standalone book, and just, it is, for me, like a pinnacle of fairy tale storytelling. And Peter S. Beagle's prose is so wonderful to read. It is so just smooth, but also beautiful and lyrical and descriptive. And the characters, I love the characters in this book. I really, really do. I love the characters so much. And so that is The Last Unicorn. And from there, we go to The English Patient by Michael Ondaatje, which is a wonderful historical fiction. I saw the movie first, and for a long time, because I loved the movie so much, I decided I'm perfectly, wonderfully satisfied with the movie and the story and the characters from there. So I just, for some reason, had the idea that there wouldn't be anything new or anything more to discover in reading the book. And so for a long time I didn't. But a friend told me, no, really, it's worth reading the book, even if you already know the story from the movie. You should read the book. You really should, because it's that wonderful. And they were right. Michael Ondaatje's writing is so good. The prose is immaculate, and the characters were even that much better. And that is like, I think it's the height of historical fiction that I've ever read. And I compare other historical fiction to it. Yeah. And next on the list is The Complete Poems of Emily Dickinson. Now, I am not a huge poetry reader, although I do enjoy poetry, especially like some of the like little poems that were included in anthologies for school or short collections of poems. I am interested in poetry, but I'm not like a great poetry reader. But Emily Dickinson is a standout poet for me, and she is one of the poets that really made me want to keep reading more poetry. One thing I love about her poems is that they are really not very long. Some of them are quite short. And none of them are very long. I don't really like epic poems, or like, I do in general prefer shorter poems. And for me, her poems were like just the right length, and they just spoke to me so deeply. And also her humor, she uses a lot of like sarcasm and irony, and that just really hit my sense of humor, and just really, I enjoy so much the humorous part. And her nature poems are so beautiful. But also her poems about death are different from so many poems on that subject, and I really like her approach to them. Anyways, all right. There have been so many interruptions. And I've made it a good way through my margarita. Oh, I'm gonna have another sip now. I've also even had some water in between. So let's see. You can see my cheeks are getting a little flushed. I made my margarita a little strong. That's how I like it. But anyway, let's see if we can get through this. And also, hopefully I will have edited this in the end to be something smooth and not jarring to watch. But we left off with poetry, and the next on the list is Wives and Daughters by Elizabeth Gaskell. This is a really wonderful Victorian novel. I really do enjoy Victorian novels. I enjoy them a lot, and this is one of the best for me. It has a big cast of characters, and it deals very intimately with family and family relationships and sisterhood, and it's just really, really good, and the characters are so well done. And the next book is another Victorian novel, Far from the Madding Crowd by Thomas Hardy. And this is another Victorian novel with a really big cast. And although it doesn't focus on all of the characters, but I mean, there are a lot of side characters, and it's just so lovely. There's a lot of beautiful description of the village and farm and pastoral life, because it takes place in a farming area and the town. It also deals with some pretty big social things that were big issues in Victorian times. And now, Thomas Hardy is famous for really dark and depressing novels. This does have definitely a tinge of that, but Far from the Madding Crowd is not as dark and depressing as Jude the Obscure. So if you kind of were afraid to try Hardy, because of the tragedy and the depressingness of it all, I think if you give Far from the Madding Crowd a try, you will like it. And next on the list is Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. And I think I just realized that I broke my rule about not a book that you've only read within the last 2 years, because I think it's been a year or a little over a year since I read Pride. Well, yeah, about a year since I read Pride and Prejudice. I have for years been watching movie and miniseries adaptations and various forms of Pride and Prejudice. So I have been extremely familiar with the plot for a very long time. And so I guess I'm giving myself a free pass on this because I have always loved that story. I've always loved the characters of Elizabeth and Darcy. And I find the Bennet family to be like so interesting and funny and kind of dysfunctional, but in a functional sort of semi way. It's just complicated, that family. But I love the characters. I love the plot. I love the banter, and the miniseries that's my favorite version, like, uses so much of the book's dialogue. They lift it directly from the page. So I feel like I have been listening to her banter and her witty dialogue forever. So I kind of forget that I hadn't read it until pretty recently. But that's a story that's always been a real favorite of mine. And yeah. And the next on this list is 84 Charing Cross Road by Helen Hanff. And this is actually nonfiction. It is her actual letters. So it's epistolary nonfiction. This is a correspondence. The letters that she received as well. Or no, is it only her? It's been a while since I read it. I think it does include letters that she got from both sides. But anyway, this was a correspondence that Helen Hanff, who was a screenwriter, like in the 50s and 60s. So she was a writer and loved books and reading and writing and all of it. And she wanted to order special books. She started a correspondence with a bookseller, and their address is 84 Charing Cross Road in London. And this is that correspondence. And it's a very short book. But it is just, these letters are so wonderful, and they start very kind of business-y and kind of, but over time and over the years, from a distance and through the letters, such a wonderful friendship is developed, and with other people in the shop that also write to her, and she includes messages to them. So it really, it's so wonderful and heartwarming and beautiful, and it's a love letter to books. If you love books and reading, you will love these letters, and you will just, it's a wonderful, wonderful read. And I still to this day really like books written in an epistolary format. I just love it. And this has been adapted into a wonderful movie with Sir Anthony Hopkins playing the bookseller, And another really famous actress from like the 70s and 80s, but I forget her name. But a wonderful actress played Helen Hanff, and that is a fantastic movie. I've seen it several times, and it is a wonderful, wonderful movie. It captures that essence of the book so well, and the characters of Helen, and I forget the bookseller's name. I forget his name. And for a long time, she's calling him Mr. It takes a while for her to get his first name. But, and it's such a quick read, such a quick read, and just wonderful. And moving on, Anne of Green Gables by L.M. Montgomery. Now, I am counting this book in particular, not all of the Anne books that L.M. Montgomery wrote. I have not read all of them. I think I've read 2. But Anne of Green Gables, the first one, is the one that really sticks in my heart. Anne is such a wonderful, wonderful child. Her imagination is boundless and fantastical, and I love the family that she finds. She's an orphan, and it's about her being adopted by this brother and sister who need help on their farm. They think they're going to get a boy, but the orphanage sends a girl, and it's they're not all very happy about it in the beginning, and it's not sure if it's going to work out. But they do become a wonderful family, and it's such a beautiful story, and friendships and found family, and just such a whimsical and boundless imagination that girl Anne has, and yeah, it's just a joy. And the last book on this list is a series, Otherland by Tad Williams. And this is a 4-book series. The first book is City of Golden Shadow. And it is, I don't know if you call it cyberpunk, but it's set in the cyber world, in a virtual world, where, like, uber rich billionaires are creating virtual reality worlds for them to live in, like, eternally. Like, the idea is uploading your whole mind and being able to be immortal in this virtual cyber world created for each client of this project. And it has a dark side. And this ragtag group kind of stumble upon weird things on the internet, and then try to figure out what is going on with these virtual worlds, and try to and the worlds, there are so many virtual worlds they travel to, and each one is so different, and a lot of them are based on literature. There's one virtual world that is based on The Wizard of Oz, and there are other ones too, and there's mythology. There is a lot of mythology in this series, and the founder and creator's virtual world is all based on Egyptian mythology, and just so many amazing worlds and the characters, this ragtag group that are trying to stop the evil, like they're threatening children. That's the dark side of this. And so they're trying to stop them from killing and using the children. And it's just so good. It's a wonderful series, and it's also full of so much imagination and mythology and storytelling, and it's very exciting. Like, it's very like, there's some scary things and a lot of action, and the stakes are very, very high, and it's like biting your nails. Oh, yeah. Oh, it's so good, this series. Yeah. And it starts with City of Golden Shadow. So those are my top 10 favorites as they stand now. Obviously, favorites change over time. And if I had made this list a year ago or 6 months ago, or if I make a list like this again in a year or two, it will be different. But this is the favorites where they stand right now. There were other books that were very close to getting on this list that I still really love. And yeah, if you have a list of your top 5 or top 10 or whatever books, I would love to hear what some of your favorites of all time are in the comments below. I would love to talk about that with you. And if you have read any of these books or series, I'd love to hear how you liked them and chat with you about them. Yeah. So, thank you for watching, and let's do one more cheers. Cheers! And a little bit of water. So I hope that you are doing well, and I hope this week coming up is a good one for you. I hope that you're enjoying all your books that you're reading, and wherever you are, I hope that you and your family and all of your loved ones are well and safe, and talk to you next time in a regular episode. Bye-bye.